Since its bipartisan passing in 1973, the Endangered Species Act has since proven to be a landmark piece of legislation, institutionalizing our national commitment to conservation and the protection of imperiled fish, plants, wildlife, and their habitats. This year marks 50 years since President Nixon signed the Endangered Species Act into law, half a century of protecting, conserving, and recovering wildlife from the brink of extinction. The Act remains a long-lasting example of commitment, cooperation, and the conservation triumphs we can make when working together. In 2023, the 50th anniversary provides a unique year-long opportunity for building support for the Endangered Species Act and imperiled species by celebrating conservation achievements, highlighting conservation needs, and reminding the public and decision-makers why plants, fish, and wildlife are not only beloved, but vital to the heritage we share as Americans. Endangered Species Coalition member organizations and partners joined together to create a series of murals in locations throughout the U.S., celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Endangered Species Act. From New Mexico to New York City, artists and communities created and celebrated murals showcasing plants and wildlife from ecoregions around the U.S., along with international species protected by the ESA. In key locations across the country, we held events with the murals at the center. The National Mural Project became the focal point for the ESA through artist talks, native plantings for pollinators, and cultural celebrations held at each of the mural opening events. Together, we spotlighted regional ecological and cultural diversity within ESA at 50 themes. The murals provided opportunities for local and national decision makers to convene alongside community members and project partners. Each one of the murals demonstrated people's support for the ESA, along with the wildlife and plants that they represented. Meanwhile, grassroots organizations, tribes, and individuals have been creating and implementing biodiversity and environmental justice projects around the country.
Bat Conservation International is working to restore foraging habitat and food plants for the endangered Mexican long-nosed bat. We work across a binational corridor to restore agave plants to feed these bats during their migrations and support healthy populations. Bats are extremely important species. They are keystone species, pollinating over 300 plants. They also help control pest insects and help protect our crops. And they're really important seed dispersers in tropical rainforests. Without bats, a lot of our ecosystems and our economies would be negatively affected. And all of the work that we do is community-based. We partner with the local communities and really try to integrate bat conservation goals and rural sustainable livelihoods and do activities and actions on the ground that benefit both bats and people. And the communities are integral partners in this process. We found great success in our efforts to restore agaves. We've partnered with over 65 partners across the US and Mexico to restore healthy agave habitat and restore these food plants for the bats.
Bueno, históricamente los agaves han sido una de las especies etnobotánicas más importantes en la historia de nuestro país y en la historia del noreste mexicano. Las comunidades actualmente están visualizando a los agaves como un elemento que puede ser muy importante para la recuperación de los suelos. También pueden obtener forraje para su ganado y también puede ser un elemento del cual pueden obtener productos como el aguamiel, pulque y el mezcal pudiera ser, ¿no? Los agaves son idóneos para iniciar actividades de restauración de suelos y iniciar cadenas productivas a partir de su aprovechamiento y manejo de su territorio.
We're a coalition of botanists working to save Hawaii's endemic plants from total extinction. The Plant Extinction Prevention Program preserves Hawaii's rarest plants through teamwork to protect wild populations from ongoing threats. There's about 100 threatened and endangered plants in Hawaii, and PEP is focused on protecting the 260 critically rare species that have fewer than 50 individuals remaining in the wild. The way we maintain these species and how we protect them from their possibility of going extinct, PEP botanists have 5 primary activities. We survey, we manage threats, monitor individuals, collect from these individuals, and then outplant them into protected areas. The program works in partnership with land managers, academic researchers, horticulturalists. Such a good collaboration and such a good conservation community that we have here in Hawaii, and everybody has each other's backs. It really shows, it's not just PEP itself, it's this big conservation community in Hawaii. I mean, we're not everywhere all at once, so we have eyes on the ground from other organizations that work with us to make sure that we're not missing these golden opportunities to collect. We're actually working with electrical engineers to try to figure out some of these problems with some of these species. Our partners over at the National Tropical Botanical Garden, who've been developing a cutting drone basically that can collect plants off cliffs that are 1,000 feet up, and there's no way we can access it. Now we're able to work with this cutting drone that cuts material off the cliff, and then we can get it into the hands of propagators, and then they can propagate those species out. We're always trying to do things different. We're always evolving. It's this adaptive management that I think really keeps PEP driving and doing really well at what we do, is because we're always looking to academics and researchers to try to find the best methods to manage these species. Since PEP's inception, no plant has gone extinct.
So the California condor, or Preganish in the Yurok language, is a species that we look up to as kind of an elder spirit, someone who's wise and who brings an energy of kind-heartedness and generosity and restoration. Part of the reason that Condor is noted is because of his less than beautiful face, and one of the teachings that we get from there is you have to look past the surface to the spirit of a person to really understand what they bring to restoration. We, as Yurok people, as well as many of our surrounding tribal members, consider ourselves to be world renewal or fix the earth people. It's our foundational reason for being, to keep the world in balance. And so Condor ties very heavily in that, both in our kind of origin stories of how we go about managing the land in a good way, but also contributing through a Condor song, which is a prayer, and by carrying our prayers for world renewal over and throughout the skies while we're asking for the world to be in balance. Condor actually was one of the most highly endangered birds out there, with only 22 individuals left free flying in the 1980s. They started, at the time, very controversial captive breeding program in the hopes of rebuilding the population and releasing them, which was successful in the mid-1990s. Now, since then, and through the collaboration of innumerable partners, there are now over 500 condors in the world, over 300 of which are actually free-flying, including the 8 birds that the Yurok tribe and their partner Redwood National Park manages.
Well, wolves have not only cultural but the historical significance to the Nez Perce tribe. Just the way they're structured, their social structure, and their spiritual significance to the tribe is important. There are a lot of similarities between the structure of the wolf packs and how the Nez Perce tribe believe in our family system. Federal law under the Endangered Species Act is one of the ways that we've been able to make sure that they were recovered and that they stay at healthy levels throughout their reign.
I think if you ask any Yurok tribal member or any tribal member within our region, they will say that salmon is our lifeblood. The word in Yurok is actually nepui, which we believe comes from the word nep, which means to eat, because it's so foundational and so integral to our ecosystem and so integral to us as Yurok people.
We call salmon in our language, tok. They've always been important for the Nez Perce tribe, especially in our diet. Of course, now the species are listed under the Endangered Species Act. Urgent issues right now is the urgency on salmon extinction in the Northwest, in particular issue of the lower Snake River dams and the impacts that the hydroelectric system has on fish survival. Between where we live in Idaho, Nez Perce Reservation, and clear to the Pacific Ocean, there's a series of 8 dams that they have to go through.
Given their role as world renewal people and given the deep importance of salmon and the health of the river overall, the Yurok tribe have been working for over 20 years to actually remove 4 of the hydroelectric dams that were blocking passage and causing water quality issues in the upriver portion of the Klamath River. And so that work actually started this year, which is incredibly exciting to everybody in the region, I would say, at least within the tribal and conservation and fishermen communities.
Sustainable fish recovery is important to the tribe, and the Endangered Species Act has always played an important role in what we do.
Each of these particular projects fits into a much larger narrative of landscape level restoration that will not only benefit the Yurok people, but all the surrounding communities as well, because jurisdictional boundaries are a bit arbitrary and they don't really have much to do with reality or ecological continuity. And so we're also very proud of our surrounding neighboring tribes throughout the Pacific Northwest who have these big dreams and have this great capacity as well to conduct restoration in their ancestral territories. And so we see our work as just one part of a much larger narrative of Native peoples working to better the world for everybody.